Welcome to Discipling Parenting. If this is the first time you've come here, let me tell you a little bit about this channel. This channel is about how we as parents can best disciple our children, how we can lead them into a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. We're going to be talking about everything parenting here. And honestly, with the news being what it's been, we need to take a step back. We need to talk real for a moment. How can we as parents disciple children of God in this racist world? How can we, with all of this hate, with all this pain, with all this hurt, raise up children who have that deep relationship with God and love each other as much as they love themselves? Let's get started. We can't talk about race in America without looking at our history. And it's really easy to try to put that history behind us and to put it in the past and say, yes, that was then, this is now. I've never owned slaves. I've never mistreated someone. But that's not real. That's unfortunately, I mean, it's nice, but it's not real. You see, things get passed down from generation to generation. We learn from our parents. We've talked about it on this channel before. If we learn from our parents, then if our ancestors had this in them, what has been passed down to us? The other thing is we inherit from our parents. We inherit both the good and the bad. To presume that somehow those qualities that made people think that slavery was okay have not somehow been passed down to us 150 years later, it's naive. But also, we have to understand that hurt and pain are passed down from generation to generation. If someone has hurt your parents, you feel that hurt also, because when people we love hurt, we feel that pain. And so, just asking our African American, our Black community to let go of that pain and to move on, that's not real either. And so today we're going to talk about how do we raise children in a generation that somehow can help us progress a little bit along this journey. One of the best things we as parents can do to raise our children a little bit differently than we were raised is educate ourselves. I'm not just talking about reading books, and by all means, there are some fantastic books out there to read. But educate yourself so that you can better understand the other side. Educate yourself so that you can understand what other people are seeing and feeling. So often, when, especially on social media and so forth, when we have a disagreement with someone else, we want to support our side without listening. So this education that I'm talking about is spending that time listening. Spending that time listening, absorbing, taking in before trying to articulate what you think and what you believe. Listen. We've got to do a better job of understanding, and also we've got to do a better job of modeling to our children. How do you understand someone else? When there's someone else who is hurting, how can you best meet them? It's listening. And so the first step is educate yourself for the goal of understanding. One of the best ways you can have understanding, though, is through relationship. If you want to listen to people, actually hear their stories, not just watch videos, not just read books, but actually engage, where you can do that active listening and you can have that opportunity to ask questions and go deeper. And that's only going to happen through relationships. We cannot solve this problem of race in America as long as we are divided. We cannot solve this problem if we are looking at it as us versus them. We've got to come together and work on this together. And so we've got to hear each other's sides. We've got to hear those stories. We've got to have those relationships. So, one of the best things you can do to disciple your children, to raise them up as children of God in this broken, racist world, is to be proactive, to make sure that they are surrounded by people so that they are forming relationships that help them better understand, that have relationships with the goal of empathy. Because you don't just want to understand. Our goal for our children is that they feel this too. We don't often think about how can we help our children feel pain. But feeling other people's pain is important. It's a critical thing we want our children to actually have. We want them to grow up with empathy. We want them to have that understanding that leads to empathy. One of the best ways we can do that is relationship. Unfortunately, understanding and empathy are not enough. If we're talking about systemic racism and systems that have been put in place to perpetuate this racism, even without us thinking about it, if those systems are in place, which I believe they are, then we've got to make some changes. But how do we do that? How do we make changes? How can little old me make changes? How can I raise my boys to change the world? That's got to happen through examining. Looking at our own lives, looking at our churches, looking at our homes, looking at our neighborhoods, looking at our cities, looking at our towns, and finding out where are those places of inequality? Where are those places where the system is not fair? Those are the points where we need to make changes. Those are the points we need to be fighting. And we shouldn't be waiting for other people to point out those points. We need to be seeking those out. We need to raise children who are finding those points that need to be changed. Those places were created by our ancestors. And so it becomes our duty, our role, to undo what we have done. Let's raise children who, when they see injustice, they're not okay with it. Let's raise children who, when they see wrong, they're going to fight it. They're going to stand up for what's right. 1 John chapter 3, verse 1 is one of those verses that I feel like really articulates this in a way that I find profound. See what love the Father has given us, that we should be called children of God. And that's what we are. The reason the world does not know us is it did not know him. We're children of God. We're trying to raise children of God. Regardless of what race, regardless of what nationality, regardless of what religion, regardless of what age, regardless of what gender, God looks down and sees his children. And so anytime we take an us versus them stance, we are pitting ourselves against God's children, and we are pitting ourselves against God. I want to raise two boys who see not only themselves as children of God, but they see everyone around them as children of God also, and they act accordingly. This is no small task. This is no small feat. But this is what we as parents, as Christian parents, are called to do. So I invite you. I invite you to make a commitment in light of these atrocious murders that seem to keep happening It's time that we as Christian parents, we take a stand and we say, it stops here. My boys, my boys are going to grow up in a different world. My boys are going to grow up seeing themselves as children of God and seeing others, regardless of race, regardless of nationality, regardless of gender, regardless of belief. They're going to see others as children of God because that is what we are.